What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old Qualcomm advertisements. No, just good old humor.
Yeah. Good old advertisements. Yeah, let's not give that brand. But why are you saying that, Terrence?
Because I think over the weekend, our last podcast caused a lot of headaches for people because there seemed to be this ad that kept playing in front of it, and which was causing a lot of people's streams or downloads to stop halfway. And we did more digging and found out that hey, it wasn't just the last episode. It was actually all our episodes started to have these dynamically inserted ad in front, specifically one ad lah. So I think a lot of people started receiving that ad, and we immediately went in and realized that there were certain settings that had been switched on by default for some reason. So we had to switch them off, and everything is back to normal. But there were a lot of comments that people were having a lot of frustration of accessing the podcast.
Yeah, and not just the ad at the start. I think like the one with Dekosh, for some reason on Spotify, it could only play up to 20 minutes, and if you try and fast forward, it restarts. So it was just fucking annoying lah. And I mean, we've been getting increasing feedback that people find the episodes taking longer and longer to download, streaming issues. And so we have made the decision to change our podcast host. So we will be doing that in the coming weeks. So hopefully these problems will be solved. Because I mean, it's a good problem. I think people are having streaming issues because more people are listening, which is great. But we will find a solution because we know how annoying it can be.
And that is precisely why there might be more streaming issues, because maybe we've hit some kind of bandwidth limit on what our podcast provider is willing to give to us, right? But I think, over the weekend, just the fact that the ads was inserted so suddenly and almost by default or something, that was a big red flag to us. That's why we're doing this. But granted, there might be teething issues even with the transition. So do be patient and let us work through these issues as well.
Yeah, don't give up, man. Don't give up. Okay? We will be here. It might take a bit longer. Once in a while, you might hear someone else's voice, like that ad over the weekend. But just bear with us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, yes.
Cool.
But aside from that, we also want to welcome people who new to the podcast as well, or coming back after that very painful weekend. What do we have to say to them?
I mean, welcome. If you don't already know, what we try and do is talk about current affairs with a touch of humor and always try and look at it from different angles. With a healthy dose of banter and tangents along the way.
That's right. Tangents.
And that's it. There's nothing more than that.
No, I mean, we want to also ask you that if you like what you listen to, do go on the whatever platforms you listen to and, give it a good rating, a thumbs up or whatever, stars or thumbs up or milkshakes or whatever they use to rate podcasts on whatever platform you're listening to. Because that helps us get discovered by more people. And so that maybe you will have less of those issues when you realize that podcast is quite popular. Yeah.
And also our subreddit, which was the first place that we got alerted to about the issue. So kudos to the subredditors. And anyone who wants to engage more in the conversation, please head on over there. Link is in the episode description.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
So,
all right. Yeah,
let's jump into the first topic. Yeah.
Let's jump into the first topic, which came out on Friday, right? Friday, the news of as in an update on a case that probably all of us have heard at some point in time over the past few years. It was the decision that Karl Liew, who had an ongoing sentencing for his part in the Parti Liyani trial, he was sentenced to 2 weeks of jail for lying to a judge. And he's also, the son of the Ex-Changi airport group chairman. So I mean, it just brought up a lot of things that have been happening over the past few years, which I also needed a refresher of, which we will get into. But that was the news on Friday, lah. And then there's been a lot of commentary on that over the past few days, and now it's our turn.
Yeah. And I think even Parti Liyani herself released a statement, right? She released a statement on a blog that basically was actually part of the, I think, an impact statement that she wanted to present to, she wanted the prosecution to present to the judge as well, which I believe, if I understand correctly, is basically the victim of the crime coming forward and saying what impact that the crime had on her, lah, right? So a lot of shots fired from all parties.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, just to give a high level refresher, this case essentially started like I mean, so Parti Liyani, and this case came to light in, I think, 2016, but overall, 2006 was when she first 2007 was when she first started working for the Liew family, and then along the way, she was asked to go clean Karl Liew's home because he moved out, and that will come. The reason for that you will see it later. Then by 2016, the family decided to terminate her employment after suspicions that she was stealing. She was given 2 hours to pack her things, and it was taken to court. And by October that same year, like the next day, the family filed a police report. There was a case that was ongoing. There was investigations. By December that year, Miss Parti Liyani was arrested. She was questioned by the police through December. In August the following year, she was charged in court. 4 charges, 3 charges of theft, and 1 charge of theft as a servant. So 3 from the house that she was living in, and 1. So basically 4 charges of theft. She lodges a report. The trial started in April 2018. Then Karl Liew testified. His dad testified in court. Who he was still holding very high up roles in companies like the Changi Airport Group. March 2019, Parti Liyani was found guilty of stealing more than $30,000 worth of items. The judge, Olivia Low, said that she couldn't see any reason why the Liew family and the driver would conspire to frame the accused for theft. Then in September 2020, Parti Liyani was acquitted because the High Court judge overturned the convictions. So from 2016 September, when the first case, police report was lodged, October 2016, to September 2020, there was this investigation going on, and she went from being employed to being accused to being charged and then being acquitted. And then she was cleared of all the charges, and then there was a review that was being done to follow the fact that there was one judge who ruled one way, then the High Court judge ruled the other way. That started in September 2020, and then Karl Liew was found guilty and then recently charged. So that's a very high level summary. But what made you want to talk about this latest announcement? Because we have spoken about it before. But this announcement, why do you want to revisit it, Terence?
No, I wanted to go to an even higher level to summarize like the general public perception of the case. Because it really is the case of a very powerful person, a very powerful privileged person, a very powerful person, in a position of privilege, and his dad is someone, right? Who on the surface was looking to use the law to whether it was punish or implicate his helper that he had some kind of disagreements with, and that he has been found guilty of providing false statements which caused her to be charged. And even though she was eventually acquitted, there was a lot of injustice seen because, like what you said, literally for almost 4 years she was faced with this charge. She couldn't leave the country. She couldn't find employment. She had to basically live on the generosity of I think the Home is a non-profit that or charity that helps domestic workers who are in situations like hers. and also on the donations from the public. So there was this very prevailing sense of injustice that a lot of people have felt towards this case. And as the details came out, authorities were dragged in, authorities and institutions were dragged in because people started to question the investigation procedures. They started to question the police officers who were involved in procuring the evidence or taking the statements from all the different parties, right? So everyone was implicated. I think if you remember, even Shanmugam had to make a statement about this, and there was a lot of commentary or an online a furor about like, wow, how is it that this person, this powerful person can, make a mockery of our entire justice system and use it to bully someone who's so much weaker and has no money and no resources to fight, who would have been sentenced to, jail for quite a long period, at least a couple of years, right? So there's this sense of everything leading up to the acquittal. Everyone was feeling very charged up about it, but so that once she was acquitted, then subsequently Karl Liew was charged for lying or giving false statements to public officials, right? But now it's the result of this case, this charge of giving false statements that is riling people up once again, right? The fact that he's only been sentenced for 2 weeks, 2 weeks prison, and it's not just about the severity of the sentencing, but I think if you dig a little bit into the weeds, it's actually not as straightforward as like, oh, he did something wrong, let's give him a sentence. Actually, there seems to be more to it, and that's why I thought this was an interesting article, because people online and you don't see it much in the mainstream media, but people online are dissecting the judge's statement a lot more closely than you would see in the mainstream media. That's why I thought it'd be something interesting to talk about. How about you? Like, why did this rile up the social justice warrior?
The freak, my SJW loins, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when this first came out, I was like, oh, okay, I need to refresh my memory about this case. But then as I started reading up, then I remember why the last time when we talked about it, it was like, what the fuck is going on? Okay. Because, I mean, literally, like what you said, there was that power imbalance that we were addressing the last time. And I mean, the fact that before this sentencing was done, it was on Thursday, March 30th, that Karl Liew admitted lying to a judge. Because I remember, essentially, there was some accusations of Parti stealing like clothes or handbags. And even back then, during the original judgment, when there were clothes that Karl Liew said were stolen from him, where he couldn't fit them, like they were too small.
They were ladies' clothes, right?
They were ladies' clothes.
Yeah.
So in some way, he admitted to that being his clothes, and now he admitted that it was false. And I mean, he does suffer from Parkinson's. And his defendant did say that, like suffering from that condition, the stress of a testimony, and that caused him to lie. But then, so I mean, what was interesting, right, is because the 2 week sentencing, right, was more from the judge, even apparently even the prosecutor didn't ask for the 2 week sentencing.
Yeah.
So that means Parti's lawyers, they were not pushing for a 2 week sentencing, which sounds weird.
No, correction, it's not Parti's lawyers though. It's the public prosecutor in this case.
Okay, please clarify a bit more, Terence, because I tried reading it.
This is a criminal charge from the state versus Karl Liew. So when it's a criminal charge, it's actually the Attorney General's chambers that comes in, and the public prosecutor comes in and on behalf of the state charges the individual, right? And then he has to hire his own defense. So Parti Liyani is not I mean, pardon the pun, it's not a party to this case directly, right? So it's not her lawyers, it's the public prosecutor that decides, okay, this is the case I'm going to set out against this guy, and this is because he committed he did committed a crime, right, against the state, against, especially, lying to a public official, that's a crime against the state, right? So this is what we're going to charge him with. But yeah, in this case, it seems that the prosecution and the defense came to some kind of agreement prior to presenting it to the judge. And the agreement was to just have it as a $5,000 fine, which is the maximum fine. but 0 jail time. And then it was the judge, district judge, I think Eugene Teo, who went through this and then decided that, hey, that's it's not serious sentencing enough. It's not a serious enough sentencing for what the crime is, right? It's not proportionate that way. So he slapped on an additional 2 weeks of jail as well. And in his in the court, I think in the judge's ruling and all, you can read quite clearly that the judge does express almost a bit of a little bit of surprise and a little bit of sarcasm when he observes that the prosecution and the defense essentially had the same argument, such that he said that the defense literally lifted the same argument and put it in their documents to the court. Lifted the same argument as the prosecution, put it in defense, put it in the documents to the court. So essentially, it's the judge saying the prosecution and defense seem to have agreed on something very a bit too lenient, and me as the judge, it's my job to decide the sentencing, so I'm going to make it more stricter. And that's why a lot of people are freaking out, because they're like, wow, if even the public prosecutor was not pushing for such a tough sentence, is this does this really represent what our legal system is about, right? About making deals, about being lenient to people in power and things like that. So those are the questions that a lot of people are talking about, right?
Yeah, and I think that's an important differentiator, because the fact that it's the public prosecutor, and I mean, just some of the things that you read to justify why the public prosecution was asking for just a fine. It was a deputy public prosecutor, Kelvin Chong. One of the things he said that Mr. Chong said that there was no evidence of malice or premeditation, and that Karl Liew had not taken any active or sophisticated steps to bolster his lies. And then Karl's lawyer, Adam Maniam from Drew and Napier, said there was no actual harm done to Miss Parti. As the judge ultimately removed the 2 items of clothing from the charge, and that Karl Liew was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So yeah, it just feels so. I mean, if you look at a high level, right, Parti was charged. Then that judge's judgment was overturned, right? Then the public prosecutor and the defendant suggest a fine, and then that also was in some way overturned by the Attorney General. So
but you mean by the judge? By the judge, yeah.
By the judge. And then around all that, I think it was back in 2020 that Karl's father himself stepped down from all his positions, because I mean, he said he's on the board of directors for a lot of companies. He didn't want it to be a distraction from his role. So it just feels, the more I read it, the more I felt like, wow, fuck, this can be a show, man. This can be a TV series, man.
Yeah, it's very dramatic. And I wasn't I don't think I'm reading too much when I say that there was a bit of a sarcastic tone from the judge as well, because he keeps referring to the deputy public prosecutor as the learned deputy public prosecutor, or the learned counsel, So I'm not sure if that is regularly used in legal parlance, where they refer to each other as learned, but it almost felt like he always used it in the context of the learned DP has DPP has not done this or has done that, So I'm not 100% sure if that's particularly a jibe at the prosecutor. But it really tells you something when the judge is saying things like, "Oh, I observed that the defense literally lifted the prosecution's thing," and the prosecution's statement, essentially reads almost like a mitigation. I mean, it's like it's like trying to reduce the penalty for Karl Liew in this case, So, and then I think, to your point about the Parkinson's, Karl Liew having Parkinson's, and that's why they asked for, that he doesn't be put into prison. The judge even came out and said that the judge had to probe the counsel to go and ask if our prisons can handle someone with Parkinson's, and the prisons came out and said yes, they can. They have no problem handling a prisoner with Parkinson's. So, the judge almost had to be the one to push for a prison sentence, for the prosecution's case, So it tells you that it's one of two things, right? The judge is pointing out either incompetence on the prosecution's part, or is pointing out that there's it seems like there was some kind of plea agreement that was already reached beforehand that seemed to the judge to be a bit too lenient for Karl Liew, right?
Terence, we try. Like if we are disagreeing, I say, Terence, can you give me your learned opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel, Terence? If I say, Terence, what is your learned opinion? Like I completely disagree with you, but Terence, what is your learned opinion?
Classically that's called a backhanded compliment, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you have to point out someone is smart. Oh, that's so smart. Oh yeah, that's like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Huh?
Yeah,
What are you trying to say?
yeah, exactly. No, you're hardworking.
So it's quite,
yes, yeah.
The judgment. I mean, the statement from the judge is only 10 pages, so it's not too long a read. But you can sense that the judge is very clearly, upset about the fact that the both the prosecution and defense only asked for such a lenient sentence when it was actually the act of lying or providing false statements to public officials that has had an impact not only on the victim but on the whole process of justice. At the end of the day, it's a bunch of people putting in their time and hours, 4 years to go and to work through this whole case, right? So how can you say that there's zero impact, whether it's on the victim or anyone else, right?
Yeah. I mean, he did also say, and I quote, while I register the point that a wrongful conviction did not ultimately result, it does not change the fact that those actions just recounted are all innately serious and ought to be met with the clearest degree of condemnation. And the last line is the mic drop. The result here must leave no one with any doubt that our tolerance for such brazen fraud in the face of the court and upon the court. So I mean, I guess their language has to be that bombastic, right?
It does.
Basically, he's saying just because you say something is not true, doesn't mean you can come and lie here, right? Essentially, That's it. And you have to be condemned, But then, because I mean, now going over to the other side of Parti Liyani's statement, she did point out certain things, that 2016 October the charges were filed. To September 2020, she was acquitted. There was the financial impact on her because she couldn't leave Singapore during the investigations, right? She was given accommodation by the charity home. There was a fundraising platform that was done by Home in 2020, which raised 28,000, but that's just like a one-time thing, Then the material impact, apparently that she still has stuff that has not been returned to her, and just the social impact, because if you imagine the CAG chairman, Man Leong, who in court testified that he had always suspected some wrongdoing, but he had tolerated her behavior, right? I mean, she did say that she couldn't find work after that, and apparently there was no apology or nothing from the family, so it just feels like even the 2-week sentencing now feels a bit lenient,
I mean, from my preliminary understanding is that the maximum for a situation like this, the maximum jail sentence for a situation like this would be up to a year, right? Or fines up to $5,000 or both. So I think there's a lot of chirping online that, hey, 2 weeks, it's nothing, 2 weeks compared to the 4 years or whatever that Parti Liyani suffered. Those 2 weeks are nothing. But I think in the context of what the judge did versus what the prosecution and the defense argued for, right? It's still at least it's a positive, right? The judge stepped in and said, hey, this sentence is not strict enough. We have to really set an example here, So okay, 2 weeks fine, but some people did point out that even Titus Low went into jail for longer than that. So posting the OnlyFans is worse than lying to public officials and giving false statements.
Yeah, exactly. No, but then another thing also that Parti Liyani and her lawyer, after the acquittal, right, they sought compensation from the High Court. Apparently, the max compensation that can be given is 10K in the event that someone is acquitted. They want to reclaim back some of the damages. They appealed for 71,000, which got rejected. But even the $10,000 compensation application was dismissed. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much detail about like why, aside from the fact that according to Justice Chan, who was the person overseeing that, the application had not succeeded in proving on a balance of probabilities that the prosecution against her was frivolous or vexatious. I mean, this was back in June 2021 lah.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's going to change, because last Thursday, Karl Liew admitted lying, right? Back in June 2021, the justice himself said there was not enough to prove that the prosecution was frivolous, which I guess now has been proven. So what's going to happen then?
Tough one. I think the probably the only real legal avenue for her remaining, because that was dismissed, right? The only legal revenue or recourse for her to get back some form of compensation is to, sue the Liew family in a civil court lah, right? Whether it's, I don't know what she can sue for, maybe defamation or anything like that. But you can imagine what kind of lawyers' fees or how long a case like that would take.
Yeah.
And given that she already has spent the last, 5 years, 6 years or whatever, dealing with this issue, is there something she wants to just move forward with? Other than, aside from now her conscience is clear and everything and her name has been cleared in public, does she want to engage in another legal battle? That there are no guarantees that she can win either, right? As evidenced by the fact that there are still arguments out there that there was very minimal impact on her. The Karl Liew's false statements had very minimal impact on her. That was the defense's argument, right? So, yeah, she's in this spot where, justice has been served in some way to Karl Liew, but has she been made whole since the incident started? Far from it, still far from it. Yeah.
So Terence, if someone says, would you like to show run and be the creator of a series for a streaming platform on this case, would you or not?
I mean, I think it's definitely a very interesting case to talk about But you also have to be very careful right? I think whenever you're talking about judiciary and all these things, you just have to be, you don't want to be accused of scandalizing the judiciary, having Pofma laid down your ass for nothing, right? But that's why I would say, before anyone makes any statements or makes grand proclamations about two Singapores or anything like that, shout out to Vikram Singh, is that to read the what the judge wrote about this case as well, to show that there are, as much as whatever theories that you have about how people are doing under the table deals or anything, the judges still can see through these things and call out people when they don't do things when they do things that seems to be against the interests of the state as well.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note, because like what you were saying just now, right? You read the judge's statement, it does sound like, okay, he's got our back, he's got like the society's back. Is like, okay, at least there's that final thing, that final filter, but I will say that if I think about personally, it does feel like it's very easy to feel that this is reinforcing sentiments that are out there, like you say, the two Singapore thing, just because of the people involved. The whole rights of foreign workers and domestic workers has been more and more in the mainstream attention over the past few years, with COVID and all. And same goes at the other extreme, the super wealthy. And this is a case that kind of involves both of them, and the sequence of events just feels a bit uneasy, a bit uneasy, because I couldn't find anything about what happened to the original judge who first charged who deemed Parti Liyani guilty, the one whose charge was overturned. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what's her deal. I don't know what's her status in the eyes of the corporate hierarchy. But just feels like, wow, this one, I don't think it's going to end here, right?
I'm pretty sure this will be brought up in Parliament somehow. Parliamentary questions or something.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone will ask some questions about this because
I want to go for that parliament, man.
That's what you said the last time.
I know. I want to go for that parliament sitting. I don't know when it's gonna be, but we will know. We will know when. What are the questions that are going to be tabled and all, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear about this.
Yeah, but anything you saw online, like or in the judgment that you found as like a surprising thing, or any sentiment you saw online that you were like, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing is, I mean, as usual, this is on Reddit from anonymous users, so take all this with a pinch of salt, right? So there are people who said that they went to school with the deputy public prosecutor in question, right?
Oh.
And they have anecdotes about him and all that in school and how he was in school and all this. So again, take all of this with a pinch of salt, but it's pretty interesting when you read about how people were like in law school or before they came to positions of power and all that and what people think about them now. So yeah, I do encourage you, if this tickles your fancy, reading about lawyers and what the different perceptions are of each other, to go and look at the comments on this particular topic in the Singapore subreddit and all. Yeah.
And he's the public prosecutor.
Deputy public prosecutor.
Deputy public prosecutor.
Who was Kelvin Chong, right?
Kelvin Chong.
In this case, yeah.
I wonder what like Liew Man Leong must be thinking also, because I mean he stepped down in 2020, right? And I mean, okay, so in my time in aviation, right, when I was at Singapore Airlines and Scoot, like, of course, Singapore Airlines and all is world famous and all, but CAG, right, as a company was very, very highly regarded, lah. As a business, they were super profitable, and I mean, he was the group chairman of Changi Airport group. He was the founding president of let me see. He was the founding president. I will pull that up, but basically very, very powerful positions, lah. And to be like dragged into this also, I'm sure he's fucking pissed off.
Yeah, and you go to, I mean, it's not just in Singapore, right? Like South China Morning Post, the headline is Singapore jails son of ex-Changi airport boss for lying. That helpless to close. So it's really, the spotlight's really on him, right? And maybe you could argue even less so on his son.
Yeah, man, like, wow, this is like, like crazy, yeah, crazy. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's going to be the end of it. Yeah, like what you say, it's going to be brought up in Parliament. And I would say for everyone to just have a high level understanding of this, because it does pose certain questions about everything that is, at the back of people's heads probably at this point in time, the inequality in Singapore, where Singapore is headed. I know even the legal system has had its own fair share of controversies over the past few years, with the people cheating. And it just feels like, yeah, man, this can't slip under the radar, man. This can't slip under the radar.
Yeah. So when are we making an appointment to go for parliamentary sitting?
Parliament sitting. So
we'll meet up for lunch beforehand at Funan and all that. Maybe we should do like a Yalabat meetup before parliamentary sitting. Then we all go together as a group. How cool would that be?
That would be dope.
That'll be fun, right? Like a group outing to Parliament.
Oh my god! But once we're in, we cannot take selfies or anything, right? We can only draw each other on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I think from we've been told that you can write on paper, but you can't bring your phone in, right? Yeah.
Oh my god! The first Yalabat meetup ever is at Parliament. Holy shit, man.
Yeah, that'd be cool though.
That would be insane, man. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, holy crap. Yeah, it's one of those things that when I first read the article, I was like, oh yeah, like, but then as you go dig deeper, then you realize, oh shit, man.
Yeah. You think, okay, he got sentenced, justice is served. But then you read more, you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But yeah.
But cool, man. Cool.
Speaking of, news that on the surface just looks like, oh, okay, another price hike, This one seems to be a bit more riling people up a little bit more, right? And it happened over the weekend. And what is this piece of news?
It is the piece of news that Grab, loved by many, will be raising its platform fees from 30 cents to 70 cents starting from May 5th. And which they describe as being in line with those charged by other ride-hailing platforms. So it'll be reflected on all transport service types, including GrabShare. They say it's to support development of continuous app improvements. It was announced through an email. It was announced through email. So just to compare, Gojek does have a platform fee of 70 cents for every trip. But Tada charges 55 cents for trips that cost up to $18 and 75 cents for those that cost more. And Ride's platform fee is 30 cents. ComfortDelGro has no platform fee. So, I mean, apart from just another announcement of Grab increasing the charge of something else, why do you want to talk about this, Terence?
I think, Grab hasn't had the best time in the news in recent memory, right?
Yeah.
Now cost of living for everyone is rising. It's something that everyone's talking about. So I'm just wondering whether this price increase or this platform fee increase by more than double what it was previously, right? And they say it's to bring it up bring it closer to its competitors as well. Do you think it's justified, lah?
I think it's justified. I mean, okay, so personally, when I need to take a ride share or something, Grab is always my last choice, lah. Because of the prices, I mean, they tend to be more expensive than most of the others, and also there's a resistance from me given how powerful and big that they are becoming, lah. So if I can support the ones like Tada or Gojek, sure. Which, I mean, more often than not tend to be cheaper, lah. So with this platform fee increase, I don't know, hard to say whether it's justified or not, but it's just another thing like, okay lah, I mean, their prices just keep going up lah. Going up.
I mean, the last time Grab was really in the news was for Tin Pei Ling, right? Her taking up the role, the role at Grab, and everyone questioning, why is it that an MP who's supposed to look after the interests of the people when it comes to the public, when it comes to dealing with the corporations and all that as well, how can she also at the same time hold a job at Grab, right? Who is under supposedly under a lot of scrutiny when it comes to regulations, right? I think a lot of people are asking, so is this price increase, is this something that Tin Pei Ling would support, or would she be against it, or would she just brush it off as it's just the cost of business or what lah? Because that I think this is the year, right? This is the year in Singapore where all price increases can and should be scrutinized a little bit more, lah, right? Because we're in the midst of GST being raised by 2%, 1% this year and 1% next year, right?
Yeah.
And then there's all these talks about trying to reduce profiteering in Singapore, where companies are using the excuse of GST to unfairly raise prices against the backdrop of course, the larger global economy, inflation and everything, and possible recession and all that as well, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think this was a good time for Grab to actually make this move or this announcement?
I think the way the world is going, right, I can't imagine there being a good time or a bad time. I think they announced this. Maybe some people are turned off and all, but I think a lot of people would still use the app because, okay, so this is my suspicion that I don't know how many people are loyal to Grab or rideshare apps lah. Maybe I'm biased towards like certain that I prefer more just because I want to support them, but ultimately it's price lah, right? So maybe for Grab, I'm sure they have enough data to show that okay lah, like even if it turns a few people off just by 30 cents platform fee per ride, right? You know how much that increases just in one day? I don't know how many fucking rides they do a day, but it's a shit ton of additional revenue lah.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. That's true.
So I would say probably for them earlier the better, because it's not saying in 2 months' time this will be easier to stomach. Probably with the rate things are going with the every day. Yeah, every week there's some new shit that's gonna get more expensive or worse. I guess the earlier they do it, the better.
To that, I would say two things. One, is that I think it's very smart that they announce it on a Friday
Yeah.
instead of like on a Monday. Because usually Friday people are winding down for the weekend.
They're a bit more chill, lah. They're like,
They're more
fuck
chill.
it, lah, you know.
Or they already got their plans in place on the weekend. If they need to take Grab, they need to take Grab, lah, regardless, right?
Yeah.
So the only response would be coming on Monday, lah, right? So you have a couple of days breather. Two is that I think this announcement is going to push me to really check out the other platforms a lot more, lah. Because to be honest, I've always been quite lazy, so I only just check Grab and Gojek and compare between the two, and maybe Zik once in a while. But I've not downloaded Tada or Ride, the Ride or Tada apps in my phone, lah. So now that I know that they charge different prices for the platform fee, I will actually check out Ride, because Ride is like 30 cents. And Tada is 55 cents for fares below $18, lah. You know, which is cheaper than Grab. So Grab cheaper than Grab or Gojek. So yeah, if anything, this announcement does push me to go and check out the other apps, lah.
But Terrence, it took you so long to check out the other things, despite all the announcement. What was the inertia, Terrence?
Just in general, you know, just having to thumb through so many different apps, really. I really am borderline Generation X and millennial. So it's for me, installing another app and just experiencing a new user interface and dealing with having to input credit card details in yet another app, you know. It was just a big turn off for me, lah. Yeah, but now, you know, as always, like it was like the Milo Ping issue, lah. You know, NutriGrade, giving a bad NutriGrade grading to Milo Ping doesn't deter me from drinking Milo Ping. But what deterred me was Milo Ping increasing by 12%. The price of Milo Ping increasing by 12% in coffee shops, as evidenced by the survey that we covered in the earlier episode. That made me stop drinking Milo Ping. You know, so it's always the money that makes you stop doing things. Yeah.
But I mean, previously also Grab, they never had. No, they had some platform fee that they first implemented back in 2020. So that one's still okay, lah. That one's still okay, is it?
No, because I think to me it was like, oh, okay, everybody has to charge a platform fee, lah, right? It's and it's part of business. But now I see very clearly in front of me that some of them charge a higher platform fee, some of them charge a lower platform fee, some of them, you know, have different tiers and all. So it tells me, oh, okay, that as a consumer, you should reward you should at least give the businesses that try to be a bit more consumer-centric a bit more of a chance. Yeah.
And also because, I mean, you do have a car, right? So you probably don't use it as much as... like, I mean, I wouldn't say I use it often, but I knew that if I needed to get somewhere quick, I need to use a rideshare. So I even have clustered all the rideshare apps together in my iPhone. You know, I one click and the 5 apps are there, and I pop, and then just search, you know, copy and paste the destination. I got a whole process ready. So it does help because sometimes the prices can be so different.
Like, what's the biggest difference in prices you've experienced personally?
I mean, even like the biggest, I can't remember, but just for example, yesterday I was coming back from my friend's place and Grab was maybe like 19 and Tada was 14.
Oh shit, that's a lot.
Which is a huge fucking difference, you know?
Yeah.
Of course,
have you experienced differences in wait times or the number of drivers available?
Okay, so Tada and Gojek typically take longer.
Okay.
Yeah. So Grab, I will give them that. They tend to be faster. So then it becomes like, okay, like which one do you need to more urgently? Like if you plan ahead, so now if I need to go somewhere, I come out of the shower already, I book Tada. Then what
so in some sense, you are quite a power user of these ride-hailing apps, lah.
I'm trying to cut down. I've cut down quite a bit also, but I do know that if I need to get somewhere quick, there's no other option, lah. So so I need to have like like this is what I need to do and when, lah. Because I do try to cut it down, lah. Because if you get into the mode where everything is the right share, right, then it's just not good, lah. It's not good.
But so my next question is like, which of all these different ride share apps you use, which one do you think has the most positive perception in your eyes?
In my eyes, the positive perception, I would say like the one that feels a bit more like a bit more real is Tada, lah, I think. Partly, I mean, because they don't appear in the news a lot. I don't know how big they are, because Grab is like a decacorn or whatever. Gojek is a
CEO
unicorn.
has a good class bungalow already and all
Yeah,
that.
so I
that's
have
what we know.
I have no idea where Tada came from. Also, it just feels like is that one in the background doing his own thing, lah. And I kind of like that.
But Scully, you find out that Tada CEO has a good class bungalow, so then
I mean, have a good class bungalow, lah. The thing is, if you keep offering prices that are cheaper than the competitors, right, you can live wherever you want, lah. You can live wherever you want. And maybe because they're so subtle, maybe they are increasing your platform fees. I just never noticed.
Yeah.
Then we shall see, lah. But I mean, the one thing I've also noticed is that when you can't get on any other apps, the comfort tends to be quite good, quite reliable.
The Zig app, is it?
Yeah. Because I remember I was in one shoot or two shoots where I was shooting in Tuas.
Okay.
First of all, it was at Raffles Town Club or something, which I thought is in town, but it's in fucking Tuas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and getting a cab there was impossible, lah, but only I could find it through Comfort, lah. So
yeah,
Comfort,
it's kind of it's quite a new thing for our times. When like this weekend I took a ride share, or at least I took one of these private hire vehicles, right? I came out and then there was this Japanese family standing outside. I don't know whether tourists or I think they live here like in Singapore, but they're Japanese. And they were standing outside the cab, like very eagerly waiting for us to come out and waiting to pounce on the cab, like, because they thought it was their lucky day, that the cab just dropped us off and then they're going to be able to jump in the cab and, not have to pay any booking fees or whatever. Then the cab already was like, oh, sorry, no, I already have, I'm waiting here for someone who booked through one of these apps already. Then the poor Japanese family had to just move away, So it's a very, these ride-hailing apps have really taken over our whole transportation infrastructure, like private transport infrastructure, where you can't, it's almost impossible or very, very difficult to just hail down a cab in public already. There's no more, the old days of watching movies and then you hear the guy going, taxi! And then the taxi stops at them. Doesn't exist anymore, man. Like, it's just because you taking out your phone and just staring at it for like 5 minutes.
But that was also
that's all it is, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I can't remember the last time I had to hail a cab. But when I see on that TV thing, people say taxi. Have you ever hailed a cab in Singapore saying taxi?
Of course not.
No,
Singapore, no.
It's normally
Singapore,
the uncle.
No. Oh, no, I'm talking about like in movies in New York City or these cities that they portray. But Singapore, no, you won't get any of that.
But even in New York City, when you were there for 2 years, did you ever hail a taxi by saying, taxi? Taxi?
You hail hard to get attention, because you're probably fighting with a lot of different stimuli in the environment. So you do have to try and jump on the road and get attention.
You hail hard. You hail hard.
Yeah, hail hard. But that was like in the 2000s, the late 2000s. So I would discount my view as that was prehistoric times, yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Just want to correct something I said earlier. It's not Raffles Town Club. It's Raffles Marina, which is a club in Singapore that you would think is in the middle of the country, but no, it's at Tuas. It's really at Tuas. Yeah. So that was where ComfortDelGro helped.
Yeah. And just building off something we talked about in the last episode was that there are no more night rider buses anymore, right, in Singapore. So we past midnight and all, you don't really have many other options to get home. Not public transport, not night rider buses. So all these ride-hailing apps, you just have to use them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Cool, man. All right.
Cool.
Shall we jump into the one Shiok comment of the past few days?
Yeah. For me, I want to give a shout out to Yellow Butt listener Daryl. I met I met over the weekend. It was quite funny because I think he came up. My child was having a little bit of a meltdown as we were leaving, and I think Daryl also came up carrying his own child. I think he's a dad of a very beautiful 1-year-old child, and so it was quite cool that we were commiserating about he was telling me about he's a Yellow Butt fan, been listening since 2019, and he took time off from his family to also just come and say hi which was quite a nice thing. And I had to run off quickly because my own kid was having a little bit of a meltdown on the side. But yeah, it's just a fun thing when I see another young parent, also having, taking time from the family to also come and just say hi and appreciate the podcast, because we don't get a lot of people coming up to us in public to say they appreciate the podcast and all that. But it's very nice when it happens. Yeah. So shout out to Daryl for that.
Yeah. And I mean, on a similar note, just wanted to give a shout out to Vikram and his wife, who even over this past weekend, I had a similar experience where my wife and I were crossing a street, and this car goes by, and suddenly we hear, "Harish, we love you." And I will say that made my fucking night, man. I mean, it turns out it was both of them, lah. And the Vikram messaged me after that because we had corresponded before over Instagram. So he said, "Hey, that was actually him and his wife, and they're big fans also, lah." So and this is something that Terrence and I spoke about before this podcast also, lah. I mean, maybe it's worth giving shout out to people who actually do come up and say hi, because it really does mean a lot to us. It really does mean a lot to us. That I know approaching people in public is almost been trained out of our normal behavior, but yeah, it means a lot. So thanks for that, man.
Yeah, cool,
sweet, cool, and plus it makes me look damn cool in front of my wife, lah. So I'm not gonna deny that.
And he needs that, like Harish needs that.
I need it, like I need it, guys. I need it. Yeah. If you see me with a group of also like a family and all, feel free.
Yeah.
Friends. The more people I'm with, the more I would appreciate it, lah. So just so you know.
No, and yeah, I think the cool thing is the people who come up to us have generally been very respectful also, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. They come to, if I'm like struggling with my kid or that, I don't think people will come to me, but at that point, my kid was already walking off. So yeah, I think they're very respectful of our time and all that as well. So that's cool. Yeah.
Sweet, man. All right, cool.
But yes, what is your one Shiok thing?
My one Shiok thing is a YouTube channel in Singapore that I have watched a couple of times, and I've been watching more also. Like it's a channel called Kelvin Learns Investing. So he's one of those people who left his job to kind of be more like, working for himself and thinking of like financial freedom and all. But what I like is that his videos he really does a good job, I think, condensing Singapore related financial stuff like CPF and even the trust card and all that into a way that is quite watchable, lah. He's got a very, very sincere demeanor about him, and through watching him I realized, hey shit, there's quite a lot of people in Singapore who are doing this whole kind of like, okay, how to manage your finance better and all that. But yeah, shout out to Kelvin Learns Investing, which is a very, very sincere name as well. You can't get more authentic than that. Shout out to him, man.
Yeah, shout out to Kelvin. Talked about more than one Kelvin on this podcast today.
Oh yes, correct. Correct. This is the Kelvin Learns Investing podcast. Kelvin Learns Investing YouTube channel. Yeah. And what about you, man?
Yeah, my one Shiok thing is actually a video on the Straits Times YouTube channel that I think it was released about a week ago, 6 days ago. It's called Everybody Out, Moving 3,500 Birds from Bird Park to Bird Paradise. So I think Straits Times journalists or content creators got a chance to document how the birds from the Jurong Bird Park have been moved to their new home at the Bird Paradise. And that's been taking place for the last 6 months, I think, or the last 5 months. I believe the bird park is opening in May, and you can actually see the interiors of the new bird paradise, in this video itself. But yeah, just the effort it takes to move like all these. Some of them are giant birds and all that to the bird paradise is just pretty amazing. And yeah, it's just a 13-minute video, but I think we really do have one of the most amazing bird sanctuaries in the world. So yeah, do check it out, and it made me very interested to go and check out the bird paradise as soon as I can get my hands on tickets.
Oh, is it? Because I think it's easy to forget how big the birds can be, right? I remember my recent thing was when we went to the zoo for researching on the show we were working on. There were the pelicans, was it? They were just standing there.
Or Pelicans or hornbills or shoebills
Fucking
or whatever.
huge, man. But that's cool. Oh, Straits Times video. So it's on their YouTube channel, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, nice.
So it's, do check it out.
Nice, man. Cool. Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. And hopefully you didn't take that long to download this podcast. Hopefully it gets faster, lah.
Yeah, do give us feedback if there's still more issues that you're facing. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.